this means for the future of the Republican Party, whether there's going to be a schism now between the young or not so young, in the case of that 30-year-old guy, Groyper faction, versus people who are, I guess you could say, more of the old school. And as we've seen, J.D. Vance was defending the Groyper faction, and I want to hear from these two guests. We have returning the champion, Counterpoints Connor, all the way from Florida, former military, former police officer, great dad, and leans more on the, I'd say, classically liberal side.
How do you know that?
And we have a newcomer to the show, Bumbadum, if I'm saying that correctly, who is a complete wild card. I have no idea what to expect from Bumbadum over here, but you are more on the reactionary end, as people could probably tell by your avatar, as well as the OPSEC. So without further ado, I would love to start this off with Connor. Give your impressions on what exactly is going on here. And once again, everybody, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, sneed all the super chats. Your help is extremely important for the growth of the show. And all the people who are watching this on Connor's channel, if you want to help BTR grow, get in here, breaktherules.tv, subscribe right now. You're going to see videos with Curtis Yarvin and a lot of other really awesome things that Connor was in. So anyway, Connor, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, so just to do a little bit, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for your kindness. Doing my intro. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran. I would argue a classical Republican, meaning that I probably have the Republican values of, I don't know, Romney, Bush, the neocons, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, whenever he talks. And I feel pretty alienated from the party right now. So I've been never Trump since 2015. I had a recent conversation that I think has illuminated me, that we are dealing with several massive problems that are fueling the radicalism on both sides. I would say it's wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, meaning the baby bust along with mass immigration, existential technological shifts like AI and the internet, and the dissolution of the social fabric, where our demographic change has been so crazy so fast that a lot of people feel alienated from their own societies. I would say the problem with the reactionary right is that their solutions in some regards are worse
like
than the
white
disease.
people getting replaced.
And so, Nick Fuentes, as an example, talking about the Groyper reactionary right, in my opinion, based off of a lot of the content that I've consumed, he's a race realist. He's like a voluntary segregationist. He's a Christian theocrat. He wants effectively like a Christian theocracy. I think these are the desperate gasps of a traditionalism that is brittle, that will probably not survive the next 50 to 100 years. The problem with that, of course, is that it's popular. Probably 1/6 of the country believes in either Groyper-like Christian nationalist beliefs.
Don't ban me
and
again.
they're also a dominant voice in the Republican Party. If you actually look at polling, they're about 55 to 60% of the Republican Party. They choose Donald Trump as a matter of first choice. So that's kind of the problem with the Republicans, is we're dealing with these existential problems. The prescriptions suck. The leadership sucks. And I think the cure is worse than the disease. But then, of course, we disagree on that. So I think that's a decent place to start.
Hey,
But
listen, we have over 300 people watching in total, okay? I'm about to end stream soon. I'm probably not going to finish this debate, okay, if I want to finish it at all. But please like the stream, okay, at the very least. All right, much appreciated. Okay, and again, I just want to say I got a community guidelines warning, okay, for literally no reason, for nude and sexual, whatever the fuck, okay? So please follow me on Kick as well, kick.com/foodshops, and join my Discord server so that you can get the latest updates. All right, discord.gg/foodshops. And might as well follow me on Rumble as well, okay? I believe it's rumble.com/foodshops. I think it should be. But yeah, just mainly because of the instability of YouTube and the fact that I'm on a 1099 NEC, okay? Meaning that they can terminate me at any time with no consequences for themselves, okay? I'm guessing. Yeah.
not only that, what do you think about this current situation with these particular individuals being doxxed and kicked out and all of that?
Well, I mean, I think they're representative of like the real frustration and anger of young men in the United States of America. You know, I'm not going to freak out if somebody's using the N-word with an A. I'm not going to freak out about racist jokes. I'm not going to freak out about, you know, making jokes about Hitler. I think the problem isn't making jokes. I think the problem is being serious about it. I think that's the problem. When I made jokes in 2000s, when I made jokes in the 2010s, when I make jokes in the 2020s, I might say some racist shit. But typically my audience or my target or my friend, they understand that I'm bantering. I'm making fun of them in order to push in the same direction as them. I don't actually think that they're like subhuman pieces of shit. Whereas I think part of the problem with the jokes in, the dissident right is that they're not really jokes. They're underlying a real hostility to people from different ethno-religious racial backgrounds. And it's also underlying a real sweeping for authoritarianism as a necessary governmental action in order to preserve what they want to preserve. So that's my frustration with it, is it's not jokes.
So you would say that the things that were leaked, you would put all of them into that category of things
I wouldn't say all. I would probably put it at a 70-30, 80-20. I would say 70-30 of it is jokes. Like, I don't think the guy actually wants to put his political opponents who don't vote for him in an actual Zyklon B gas chamber. But at the same time, is the sentiment effectively you're either with us or against us? I think that's the joke is a joke, because I don't think he would put his opponents in a gas chamber. The underlying thrust of the joke is you're either with us or against us.
So this brings us to Bumbadum.
Bumbadum. You can say
Bumbadum. Bumbadum. There we go.
Who is this?
What are your thoughts?
Oh my god. Oh, this is a shitter debate. Oh no. Why? Dude, literally anybody can have like the fucking GigaChat voice filter, dude. Oh my god. This is so cringe. Why are people like this? Like, why can't people just like speak normally? Oh yeah. My name, you can call me Bumbadum. Bumbadum. Alright. I'm here to argue against Counterpoints here, because he has offended the white race. The white race disregards those who are traitors. They're traitors for opposing the white genocide, the Mayocide in the United States of America. See? Anybody can do it.
On what Connor was just saying right now.
I'm actually kind of impressed. Most of the time when I see the kind of classical liberal or classical right or whatever, they won't even give enough credit as to the problems that create the extremism. So I'm impressed that you even kind of were able to enumerate that. That makes me happy for the future of this conversation. And
software? What?
And generally for like the prescriptions, I would agree. I think that everything that you essentially are representing here in this conversation,
dude, I can't do this.
Those prescriptions failing.
This is so stupid.
Everything. Like the people in name, like Romney, Bush, Nikki Haley, let's say go all the way back to Reagan. These people have all just been abject failures and are the reason why we are where we are today. As for the messages, if we want to kind of stay more focused on the actual content of the messages, I think, there's one other thing. The categorizing these people as Groypers, I want to introduce a little bit of nuance here. These guys are not Groypers. Groypers are a very specific fan base of.
Oh my god!
And these people are not only
it's a Groyper, because of course it is.
So when you go back, I'll give you some lore. When you go back to like 2019, you go back to 2019, 2020, Nick Fuentes had this Groyper war movement where college kids went around to TPUSA events, and the goal was to push the Overton window. The goal was to push the Overton window to essentially where we are now, which is mass immigration constriction. And
wait, before you keep going, I just want to make sure Counterpoints. If you're typing things in, please mute yourself.
Okay.
Keep going. Boom, boom.
So when we go back to 2019, and you can go and you can find all these videos, they're pretty tame.
This cannot be real.
Pretty much everything that was being said, Charlie Kirk essentially was agreeing with up until the moment that he was assassinated. And that was what Groypers were back then. And then after 2020, something happened. I don't know. There's all sorts of interesting theories. And the movement, it itself split apart. And you had a lot of these people that essentially what MAGA is right now, and the ostensible positions that everybody agrees with in the Republican Party, the most highest margin approval ratings that Trump has are essentially on these anti-Israel, or not anti-Israel, isolationist, anti-war. That's a better way of saying it. Isolationist, anti-war, and anti-immigration. And these are like the two main things that they were pushing. That was like 2020. And then things got crazy, and now you have this very weird movement. Nobody knows, though, how to properly categorize the accelerationism on the right and the left. So then we get very, very messy words like calling 30-year-old young Republicans that have no association with Nick Fuentes Groypers. They're not. What they are is they were edgy. They were edgy like I was edgy when I played World of Warcraft in college. They were edgy like everybody, like every video game socialized young male.
Who is this?
The
This
way that they're
cannot be
alleging,
real.
they're just like that. And when we look at the way that these group chats were acquired, it's very obvious that this is not a manner of like this is not the biggest comparison that people are making is to Jay Jones, right? And Jay Jones, where he was saying that he wants to see the children of Republican legislatures murdered to force them to change their
So this guy is like 30 plus using the GigaChat voice. Yeah, Radiant. Aren't you like 40?
political positions. That was leaked by the person that he sent it to. And it was leaked because they were so disgusted. I think it was like a Republican legislature that actually sent the messages. These leaks have now all but essentially been confirmed as a part of a scheme of political extortion among a very, very slimy person in the party. This seems to be the case. But yeah, I wouldn't call them Groypers. Now, onto the issue of whether or not this is going to create like a schism in the Republican Party, I don't think this is a question that will be answered until 2028. Because what's going to happen is you're going to see
The
all
voice
this. And you're going to see
filter.
kind of
No, you
when there's a
don't.
lull, when there's no big bill or whatever, you're going to see kind of weird stuff like this. And then when there's something for the party to rally behind, then they'll rally behind it, rinse and repeat. But in 2028 is when the decision's going to happen.
It has to be someone with a recognizable voice. That's what I'm thinking, but enough people are paranoid about their digital footprint, so.
Of when kind of the old losers that have lost and have lost so badly that have effectively, they have lost so badly at the expense of my life and the expense of my youth and the expense of my future. You're going to see those people try with all of the money that they can to claw it back. And you're going to see a lot of people like me who have felt what losing looks like in their youth and essentially like you're seeing people that make good money, 75 median income, and they have to live with 5 other people in the house because housing is so bad, because of the policies these people do, because of what they have not accomplished. You're going to see that type of grassroots versus the kind of old head losers. And I think that's a question, that schism will happen in 2028, and that's going to be decided in that Republican primary.
Connor?
Yeah, no, he gave me a lot, so I'll try to grapple with as much as I can. So my frustration, and I do agree that it is it's a toss-up ball that's in the air that's going to be decided in 26 and 28. So for instance, if the economy has price shocks in agriculture and in construction that ends up pissing off the average working class or middle class person, then I think that the Democrats could sweep in the midterms. If, however, the supply chains adjust and then as a result we kind of stabilize as an economy, then I think Trump could defend in the midterms if we had a strong economy. And then
I don't even want people to think about the polls or like the chances of winning or whether or not you live in the swing states when voting for the midterms, okay? Just go and vote. Stop looking at the polls and just go and vote, okay? Seriously, all right? Because that kind of thinking is what gets us to lose, right? If you vote or you don't vote based off of the thinking that your vote does not influence the outcome, that is how we lose, right? Because the thing is, the only reason why California is like a blue stronghold is because people vote. That's why. Like, it's not like a solid blue for no reason. Like, these states are not a solid blue for no reason, okay? They're a solid blue because of people like you, all right? So you cannot just simply vote or not vote based off of whether or not you live in a swing state, okay? And for people who live in California, I believe that it's not too late to vote for Proposition 50.
when it comes to 28, I actually do think, especially with the speech to the generals recently, that whatever anxieties or fears I had of Trump installing himself as dictator for life, that effectively evaporated with the speech to the generals. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a military coup. I don't think there's going to be a dictatorship. I think he's going to pass the baton. Now, it seems like right now, passing the baton is going to be to J.D. Vance. He seems to be getting tapped on the shoulder as the next king. And so the question is J.D. Vance charismatic enough to carry the weight of MAGA, the MAGA movement going forward? And is he like autistic and dissident right-wing enough in order to appeal to the kind of like the anger of the young people? And is he articulate and technocratic enough in order to attract kind of like the more normie Republicans? And that is also up in the air. We have to see how he debates. We have to see how he talks to the public. We have to see how he rides his own bicycle without the training wheels of being Donald Trump's successor. Now, with the housing, cost of living, mass immigration, border security, and isolationism, what's interesting is the popularity of isolationism, the popularity. I'm all for border security. I'm all for vetting every single human being that comes into the country. However, I think what's going to happen is we are going to understand relatively quickly in the next few years why we involved ourselves in world affairs. We're going to understand in the next few years why we allowed so many Hispanic immigrants to come here and work in agriculture and construction. And it's going to be because we're going to experience economic shocks. We're going to experience political shocks. There's going to be other incidents like critical incidents like Iran that are going to force the United States of America to defend its international empire. And so as a result, I think that Donald Trump is effectively creating a power vacuum and economic instability, and people hate economic instability, and power abhors a vacuum. So it's kind of a toss-up on whether or not he survives the conditions that he himself is creating.
There are people who constantly criticizes the United States for propping up dictators and propping up like dictatorial regimes, but what they kind of leave out is the fact that literally every single fucking regime in that entire territory is anti-democratic. Like, they're all authoritarian regimes. You want to pick the authoritarian regime, obviously, that is on your side. Obviously, right? Like, this is a pragmatism talking point, right? If you had a choice between two authoritarian regimes, why the fuck shouldn't you support the regime that is pro-America? Like, what the fuck? Right? But yeah, you know what? Yeah, sure, we're propping up authoritarian regimes. Why not?
Bumbadum.
I mean, I just don't care. There's not really, and you can go and you can talk to a lot of people like me. You know, there's this, the economy is, my iPhone's gonna get so expensive if we deport all these people. Everything's gonna get so expensive, and the issue with that is, I just see this, and it's such a.
Bro came here to debate. I do not care. With the voice filter, in order to say I do not care. He is not just having the GigaChat voice filter, okay? He's even having the position of the GigaChat, all right? It's not just, oh, I want my voice filter to sound like a GigaChat, okay? I want to be the GigaChat.
Loser mentality. And such a loser mentality to go and say that we need to import a bunch of South American slaves, and not only that, let's start there. We'll take the tangent in my mind. We need to import a bunch of South American slaves to go pick our groceries, right? This is the impetus, is that we need this low cost labor to keep prices down.
Groyper talking point.
First of all, no, we have machinery. You can look up literally every crop, and there's a machine, not just for every crop. There's a machine for like 10 types of crops. This exists.
South Africa.
We can automate. I hate to do the abundance,
was it
as
South
refined
Africa
thing,
or South America?
But there's a greater vision for our country, and it's so sad to say no. We just need to keep importing the third world. But even worse than that is it's just such an immoral thing to do. I mean, what was it in the Biden administration? 300,000 kids went missing, right? It was 300,000 kids went missing for child sex and labor, right? And in California.
What are you just saying, like, randomly in the United States through no fucking fault of Biden? Like, are you just saying randomly across a specific region that has nothing to do with a fucking policy?
We saw I think it was a marijuana farm that got busted, and like half the people that they found were kids. And we're sitting there going, well, I think when we deport all these people, we're going to figure out why we were importing child slaves to work on farms. And it's like, what are we talking about here? This is so evil.
Oh my god.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but this is where I think like selective memory and also kind of like selective outrage is where I'm not going to necessarily follow you, I suppose, is when we're talking about like slaves, okay? I think of chattel slavery. Chattel slavery in the United States of America was you had a less than subsistence, you didn't have an income. You lived in a shack. There was no air conditioning. You got your ass beat if you stepped out of line. If you ran away, you got hunted down.
Wait, hold on. Why are you even engaging with this point? Why are you even engaging with this point of like the slavery talking point? Like, this is clearly a nonsense fucking point.
Down and slaughtered with dogs. If you fought against your master or fought against the white man, you got hung. Your wife or girlfriend was raped and impregnated. Your children were sold. Your wife or girlfriend was sold. You were converted to a different religion forcibly. You were converted to a different language forcibly. Comparing because that's the thing. It's like I live in Central Florida. It's a fairly purple, multiracial, multi-ethnic place, and the agriculture workers and the construction workers around here are not. They're not subject to those conditions. The conditions they're in is they do work hard. They do work their asses off, but they come here. They make what's a good wage compared to back home. They live 2 or 3 people to an air-conditioned apartment. They share a truck. They work their dicks off. They do their remittances, and they build a middle-class life back home. And that's why they're here. So again, like, we can talk about kids. We can talk about human trafficking. We can talk about all that kind of stuff. But comparing this to chattel slavery, I think is bullshit.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have used the word slavery. We must, maybe indentured servitude is a better word for using children to pick marijuana leaves so people can get high. This is that are illegally trafficked into the country. This is such a, first of all,
would I be mistaken to say that Connor's POV here is that the sheer amount of kids that get trafficked is still not that high, and it's not worth it maybe to change that versus getting rid of so many people that are working hard?
Because most positions they're not slaves from the 1600s, so it's not that bad. Like this is what you actually just said.
Bumbadum.
This is a stupid debate. I don't even know if I want to watch this. Like, we're talking about a point, like, dude, he's forcing Connor to contend on a point. Dude, Connor doesn't even know. Dude, fuck me. How is Connor bad at debating, but also good at debating? I don't understand. I don't get it. Like sometimes in debates, like, I'm like cheering for Connor, and sometimes he's just fucking terrible at it. Like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? Why are you even trying to treat this argument in any kind of good faith? This is obviously a bad faith argument. Don't even contend with it.
I do think that's descriptively true. However, this is what you're going to find the conversation. Hold on real quick. This is where you're going to find the conversation is legitimately different than maybe like an abundance liberal. So an abundance liberal would say, oh.
Like, I wish we would just like look. I wish we would just look at some talking points and go like, yeah, no, that's a retarded talking point. I'm not engaging with you on that. Right? Like, I feel like you like people should start adopting that. Oh yeah, by the way, I think the audience would agree with me that this is a fucking retarded talking point. Right?
Well, on the whole, 300,000 out of 12 million is only this percentage, and who gives a shit? No, that's not what I'm going to say. As a former like law enforcement officer, I'm going to say no. Like that's not the way that we should be operating. The way that we should be operating is America has an economic need, okay? And these people should be working in dignified conditions that are substantively better than slavery. And it should be a win-win.
Bumbadum is 12 years old. Has to be.
It shouldn't be this.
It's the only good explanation for
gray
it.
market situation where people are getting paid under the table. People are getting kidnapped. People are being turned into sex slaves. People are being turned into agricultural slaves. No, none of that shit. Obviously, what I would want, or what I think is ideal, is a secure border. I do think we should have spent $21 billion on a border wall. I do think that CBP and ICE.
How could you support a border wall? What? Connor supports the border wall?
Have a role in making sure that we're not constantly swamped by hundreds of thousands or millions of immigrants. What I think the problem is, or what the technocratic criticism of what Trump is doing, is the fact that he's doing mass deportation operations that are targeting people that don't fucking make sense. Like people who have either been here for a short time or a long time, but they're escaping failed states, communist failed states. They're socially and economically productive. They're not criminals. They're applying for asylum, and yet they're still getting deported. And that doesn't fucking make sense.
Applying for asylum, the problem with saying, like, well, they're applying for asylum is that, unfortunately, for your argument, Biden removed this as a viable rebuttal because they made it so you could apply for asylum the moment you walked up to a border, got a phone handed to you by some NGO funded by the fucking US government, and they said, install this app, and then you're going to apply for asylum, and we're just like,
oh, I know what app he's talking about. It's an app where you can actually apply for asylum. Yeah.
So applying for asylum means nothing. None of that means anything. And beyond that, it's totally acceptable.
You really think they don't verify anyone who's coming in? You really don't think they do any kind of background checking or anything like that? It's Nathan. Oh my god. Maybe it is Nathan. Oh my god, what if this is Nathan? Wait, could it? Why would he mask his voice? Because his voice would be recognizable, right? And he argues from a Groyper standpoint. And he's debating an orbiter of destiny on this.
That the system was abused.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Well, let's take a broader view. I want to take a broader view of this and ask the following question: how many people are refugees and people who wouldn't really make sense to get rid of? You know, people who are quite valuable and have like a sufficient reason to be here, versus the amount of people that are going to cause problems in the next several decades. And is
what if the mic is editing out the list?
Is there any way that we can figure that out? And by problems in the next several decades, no, just to finish my thought, by problems in the next several decades, I don't just mean, that there's going to be criminals. I mean that is there a way we will know that the people that are going to be in this country are going to be participating in this country in such a way with all the rights and privileges that American citizens have, so they would continue the dream of the founding fathers as opposed to the reality of where they came from? That's an important question to ask.
Yeah, and Bumbadum, if I could real quick, we actually have an answer for this, and it actually goes along with Bumbadum's argumentation, which is effectively 4% are legitimate asylum applicants that get approved. 96% of the people who come across our border and apply for asylum are economic migrants who end up getting rejected due to not having like a strong enough asylum case. So yeah, and
they stay here, but they stay here. They don't go home. They get rejected and they stay here. This is a part of the problem. This is why all these people, they say, oh, they're deporting asylum seekers. They're deporting asylum seekers. It's like, well, they got rejected and they stayed in the U.S.
Ooh, whose speech pattern do you think this person lines up with? Who does this person debate like?
Sure. There's anecdotal cases, but I know that you probably won't give a shit about those anecdotal cases, so I'll just move. So I agree with you that this is where I think the conversation will be a little bit different than usual.
No, I'm sure it isn't.
I don't
Nathan,
think that it is the United States' moral obligation to be the economic bastion of Central and South America. I think that we should effectively take in the people that are economically and socially beneficial to us. And to Lev's point, I think that we should have this is something, believe it or not, a dissident right-wing thinker, the distributors told me, is that in the late 19th, early 20th century, there was a proactive
through in the middle of a debate,
public education system,
who laughs?
proactive propagandistic attempt to force Germans and Irish to think of themselves as white and to think of themselves as American.
Just a drink. A martini, shaken, not stirred.
Mandatory donation.
True. Thank you. Thank you so much for the 2 Australian. I appreciate that. Probably something we don't know. No, it has to be something we know.
And that was necessary in order to form kind of the social fabric that we have now. I think that is something that we should bring back, that public education needs to reinforce American civics, and integration needs to be a priority.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, this is, my favorite meme is the melting pot meme, because everybody would talk about the melting pot. I don't know if you actually know what the melting pot is. The original play was essentially, the guy believed, I'm spacing on his name, it was this Jewish guy that essentially believed that America was God's crucible, and that he would take all of the different European races and convert them into the single American white, which is pretty funny. I think it's a hilarious thing that this word has been transformed. But I don't think you can then take that, this like, there are degrees, right? There are degrees where maybe you might be able to one day, after 150 years, get an Irish, a German, and an Anglo in the same room and be like, yeah, we're all American. I don't think you can do that. And I think Thomas Jefferson was pretty much right when it came to what he believed should have been done about the issue of like slavery in the country, which is that he believed that there needed to be a sort of a separation because there would be existential fallout. And I think we're kind of seeing that. But
so hold on. I want to press you on this though, because this is one of the things where I feel like we're borderline living in different worlds. So you mentioned that the losers, the neoconservatives, the moderate conservatives, the corporate Republicans,
people that lost elections and made the country worse. Yeah, the losers.
Well, not just that, but like arguably Bush, even if he didn't identify as a neoconservative, he governed as a neoconservative, right? Like laissez-faire economics, military intervention overseas, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Reagan as well, by the way, with the amnesty.
Sure, and people are now arguing about Reagan's legacy because he was pro-gun control, pro-immigration amnesty.
These people sucked.
Well, right. So then that's where the Republican Party, in my opinion, has totally shifted in the past decade, where it's borderline unrecognizable to the principles and values that I was raised with. But I want to ask you, because you kind of did make it personal. You said that these losers who have represented us and either lost elections and or they had bad policies that fucked over the American people, in your eyes, they had kind of like, I don't know, sabotaged your life to some degree. And then not just that, they were kind of responsible for the sabotaging of the modern American plight. And you kind of put it in existential language. And I just don't think the stats like bear out an existential threat. So can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you can look at the demographic change in the last 30 years, in the last 40 years. I mean, it has been so rapid that young people now live in a totally fundamentally different world. So the city I live in is let's say one of these large dystopian West Coast cities. 30 years ago, this city looked completely different. You did not see signs in Star Wars languages. You did not have the type of activity and behavior. You could go down the street and you could simply hear the language of your nation. This is not what you experience anymore in many American cities. And this is the case everywhere. The demographic change across this nation has been so fast. There's unbelievable. It is completely, this is why you and I live in different worlds, is because you and I grew up in such different worlds. The world that like when I got to form all of my like worldly beliefs after age 10 because I'm so ahead of the curve. But in this world, was in 2000.
Oh. This has to be a troll. It's a troll. It's a troll. I formed my world beliefs at age 10 because I'm so ahead of the curve. Okay, that's a troll. That's a troll. Right? Oh, God. Okay.
2010, 2012, for example. I think the best example, I was just talking to a friend about this, and I'll stop here, but in 2014, Barack Obama started the actions against the school to prison pipeline. In 2014,
He's 12
he
though, I
threatened
know.
to sue with Title IV, Title VI, or threatened DOE funding cuts to any school that called the police on kids that were committing criminal behavior. This is not something you experience, and I guarantee you, what I saw in high school was a fundamentally different world than what you saw in high school. And it's not just that; it is every single thing from when I was 14 to when I'm 25. That's why.
Well, and can I ask?
Oh, so he's 25. It's zip zip. It's zip zip.
This. So I'm in my late 30s. Are you still in your 20s?
Yeah, I'm mid 20s.
Okay. So hold on. So I heard what you said, but I am going to press you on it, okay? Because the perspective that you have, I think, is relatively speaking ahistorical. Because if we look at the founding of the nation, we're talking about 13 colonies on the East Coast, and all of the shit that we were dealing with then, we were dealing with French colonists.
Wait, hold on. What kind of 25-year-old would admit that they fucking formulate the worldview at 10? What? You can't be serious about that, right? At 10? When I was 10 years old, I was a fucking retard.
We're dealing with Native Americans. You're talking about like barbarism from savages. You didn't have like black people being racist and beating up white kids. You had Native Americans raiding cities and villages and scalping people. That's the kind of shit that was going on. And that lasted through the entire 19th century. Then when we're talking about like the middle to late 19th century with the Civil War, we actually had it as a part of our social fabric up until 150 years ago that black people were subhuman. They were abhuman. They were a different kind of human, and you could technically own them. And that was a huge part of our economy and our culture.
So
and we fought a war that killed 500,000 people. When you're talking about the early 20th century, well, actually, I should go back a little bit. Benjamin Franklin, when you're saying like, oh, well, I don't hear the language of my nation anymore. I hear Spanish, or I hear, Chinese, or I hear this, or I hear that. There's a letter from Benjamin Franklin at the founding of the nation where he says, we're taking in so many fucking Germans that if we don't pay attention, the United States is going to become a German project, not an Anglo project. And as a result, we're going to be subsumed by these swarthy, shitbag Germans. And so for me, it's like, if we look at this historically, we've been in infinitely more precarious existential times than this. Even looking at crime stats, like I'd love to get into crime stats, but I've been yapping for 2 minutes, so I'll shut up for now.
No.
One quick thing before Bumbadum or yourself would reply to this, because I am very curious, bringing back this idea of, well, America shuts itself down for a certain amount of time. In the 20th century, I believe that was in the 1920s, that they restricted immigration severely. And I think that that was the opportunity for a lot of the migrants who came here in the early 20th century to start getting more into what was considered to be, the golden ideal of the WASP. But also, I wonder this, how much did this have to do with shame? How much did this have to do with the WASPs talking about how great they are and how low all of these people are, and you'll never make it, yada yada yada? It's kind of fat shaming in a way for the migrants who came in here. So I'm not sure if the same thing would work right now. We had a very interesting conversation with Steve Boyle and Bog Beef on an earlier episode. You guys should definitely check it out. I even made like an animated AI thing of Bog Beef as Macho Man Randy Savage in that clip. But anyway, we were talking about this gradient, where on one hand you have a kind of authoritarian regime that you would see, let's say in Singapore, for instance, where even if people live from different cultures, they're able to get along with each other because they're forced to get along with each other through this power that's constantly, watchful of any wrongdoing. And then on the other hand, you have people who, are more homogeneous, have the same culture, and there's much less fear that something's going to go wrong there. So if we have this gradient over here, where exactly America is going to be in that gradient, I think that the concern that Bumbadum has, as well as Bog Beef, is that we're not doing anything at all, like the whole is-ought situation. We're not doing anything at all to address whatever potential differences may come about through the lack of minding the store, through the lack of understanding, well, what exactly is going on in the mind of a lot of these new people who are here. is it just a matter of, well, they like football and they like American shows, so now they're Americans, or is it more complicated than that?
Sorry, I'll let Bumbadum go because I talked most last. But no, I think one of the things that I disagree with liberals on is that they think, oh, well, we'll just like kind of boil in the soup of American culture and we'll all become one thing eventually. Whereas I think there should be an intentional, integrative effort, because I think that if you don't reinforce the libertarian or liberal roots of American philosophy, I think this project will disintegrate.
And before Badaboom responds, I think that what you got on right now has everything to do with his dissatisfaction with the so-called beautiful losers of the Republican Party, because I think that he sees those people as people who are unwilling to cut the Gordian knot. And if the Gordian knot is not cut, then all these things we're talking about are never...
I will say that this is a better moderator than the previous few moderators that we've seen. This is, by the way, this is what I mean by active moderating, just by the way, okay? Like, this is what I mean by active moderating. You're not necessarily, you got to be careful not to take an active stance. Because it sounds like he might be a little bit opinionated, maybe? But, yeah.
We're going to be fixed. At least I don't want to speak for him, but that's what I'm saying right now. So, Badaboom, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say that's about right. Yeah, there is this kind of funny. I can't help
it's
but call
active
it a meme at
moderating.
this
Oh,
point,
it's good.
but
Pretty
this
good.
kind of funny meme of like,
I think.
well, because America started as a pan-European project, essentially, right? Ostensibly it was, and since 1790 Naturalization Act, we kind of understood this in terms of like legality, what was allowed into the country or what was preferred in the country at the time, was a pan-European project. We can get into like various letters about like, well, there's too many Irish, there's too many Germans, there's too many Italians, but like they were let in legally speaking because it was a pan-European project. And this gets expanded into like, well, that just means, what did Reagan say? Reagan said that everybody was an American, if they came here, like whatever that stupid old guy said.
Okay, that's enough. I'm probably gonna follow, listen to this another time, because we are hitting time. This is weird. I mean, this person has some wacky neo-Nazi coded beliefs. Okay, but Groyper beliefs, one might say. Who am I to judge, right? I'll save this as a link though. Now, he mentioned the Reagan thing, what Reagan has said. Listen, it just so happens that I have a sick fucking edit to show you guys, okay, before I close out the stream.